Good morning. I am Zachary Parker, Ward 5 Councilmember and Chair of the Subcommittee on Libraries and Youth Affairs. Today is Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. The time is 11 a.m. and we are meeting in room 123 of the John A. Wilson Building and on Zoom. I'm calling this public roundtable to order. Today, the committee will receive testimony on two resolutions, PR 25-0893, the Board of Library Trustees, Roswell, Encina Confirmation Resolution of 2024, and PR 25-0894, the Board of Libraries Trustees, Shanel Anthony Confirmation Resolution of 2024. Roswell Encina was nominated by Mayor Muriel Bowser for appointment as a member of the Board of Library Trustees to serve for the remainder of an unexpired term to end January 5th, 2029. Mr. Encina has served as the Chief Communications Officer of the Library of Congress since 2016. Prior to taking that role, he served as Director of Communications for the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore, Maryland. He is a Ward 2 resident. Mr. Encina received his Bachelor of Science in Marketing Management from De La Salle University and his Bachelor of Arts in Communications from Salisbury State University. Shanel Anthony is nearing the completion of his first 5-year term on the Board of Libraries Trustees and has been renominated by Mayor Muriel Bowser for a term to end January 5th, 2029. Since 2013, Mr. Anthony has served as regional manager for Medtronic, a medical device company where he leads a team of 10 sales professionals to meet sales growth goals of $30 million. A Ward 4 resident, Mr. Anthony earned his Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and his Master of Business Administration from Bryant College. Today, we do not have any public witnesses, so we will proceed to hear directly from the nominees. We will begin with Mr. Encina, whose nomination was filed first. Mr. Encina, if you could please come forward. As is practice of this committee, I'm going to swear you in. And so, Mr. Encina, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Awesome. Thank you. And we can begin with your opening statement. You should see a button and it should turn green or red.
There you go.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairperson Parker and members of the committee, I am Roswell Encina, and it is my pleasure to receive your consideration for my nomination to serve on the Board of Trustees of the District of Columbia Public Library. I am grateful to Mayor Muriel Bowser for nominating me, and I'm honored and humbled to have this opportunity to serve the residents of our district. I am a proud DC Public Library cardholder. When I first moved to the district, it was one of the first items I checked off my to-do list. One of my earliest memories as a child was my parents taking me to our local public library in Groton, Connecticut, and being wowed by the shelves of colorful spines of books available for everyone. I remember being in awe of their full collection of the Hardy Boys books and Nancy Drew mysteries that I couldn't wait to read each one. During that trip to the library, my parents set me on a lifelong love for books, libraries, and learning. This love for storytelling and fact-finding, like the Hardy Boys, led me to my first career as a television journalist. For 14 years, I was able to combine my passion for telling good stories, uncovering facts, and serving the community. As I crisscrossed the country as a journalist, I made sure I connected with a public library and secured a library card wherever I was living. From Salisbury, Maryland to Huntsville, Alabama, from Memphis, Tennessee to Baltimore, Maryland, then finally to Washington, D.C., that trusted library card and all the resources and services it represented was always in my wallet. It was during my time in Baltimore when an opportunity presented itself. The position for Director of Communications for the renowned Enoch Pratt Free Library, Baltimore City's public library system, was available. After a vigorous application process, I was honored to be selected, then served the people of Baltimore for nearly 10 years. Working at the Pratt Library, it was reaffirmed to me the importance and critical value of public libraries in the lives of its citizens. The free resources, services, and programs it provides is not only life-changing, but life-sustaining. I saw it firsthand on a daily basis. People lined up to use the computers to apply for jobs, free lunches for children in the summertime, providing healthy groceries in food deserts, access to technology like tablets and laptops, free medical information, and so much more. In my capacity as a senior leader of the Pratt Library, I was able to substantially increase visitors and usage to the library, amplify its awareness and usage in the city, and raise millions of dollars by starting the library's Young Professionals Group that has become a model for other libraries across the nation. But the capstone of my time at the Pratt Library was meeting and working with its then CEO, Carla Hayden. Her leadership and mentorship has allowed me to see the power and potential of a library's work. This couldn't be more evident in the spring of 2015 when she decided to keep the Pratt Library branches open in the wake of the unrest after the death of Freddie Gray. The branch libraries became a lifeline to the community because it was one of the very few places open in the city for them. I'll never forget a group of people surrounding and protecting one of the branches that was located at the heart of the unrest. It was at the same branch where a young man came up to us a few days later and was very grateful we kept the library open because he was able to apply for a job online and secure an interview. In 2016, Dr. Hayden was appointed by President Barack Obama to become the 14th Librarian of Congress, and I was humbled that she selected and appointed me to become the Library of Congress's Chief Communications Officer and her trusted advisor. Since then, we made it our top goal and mission to make the largest library in the world and the nation's library not only accessible, but relatable to all Americans coast to coast. This is almost the same work public libraries have been doing for years in their local communities. I am proud to say in the past 8 years, the Library of Congress has increased visitors, public programs, visibility and awareness, and its digital usage, all in service of the American people. Now, as a citizen of the district, I've become a user and fierce advocate for the DC Public Library, both professionally and personally. In my capacity at the Library of Congress, we have collaborated and partnered with DCPL on many projects and free programs. I have seen the library's crucial work for its patrons in providing free on-site and digital access across its 26 locations. As a resident of Ward 2, I frequented the branches near my home, Shaw and Cleveland Park Libraries, and the one near the office, the Southeast Library, before it closed for renovation. Whether it's sold-out author events at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library or Art All Night family events or summer reading activities, DCPL has continued to celebrate Washington's rich and diverse community while keeping the DC spirit and hope alive. I am proud of how DC Public Library has been a national and international leader in preserving and elevating local history, like with the Go-Go Archive, DC Punk Archive, and the Rooftop Concert Series. If confirmed, I would be an advocate not only for the library, but for the people it serves. From my more than 17 years experience, like I've shared with you today, I know the crucial work public libraries like DCPL contributes to the city's economy, citizenry, and progress. I have the experience and expertise to work with the library and district leadership in formulating and implementing projects that will enhance DCPL's vital role for providing access to its patrons. In this digital age, libraries continue to evolve in its role in serving the community. But now more than ever, it is crucial for the DC Public Library system to continue to adapt to the ever-changing needs of its users, whether in person and online, by providing accurate information and resources, diverse stories and programming, keeping the spirit of democracy, and preserving DC history. I'm particularly interested in ensuring that the library services and outstanding staff continue to equitably serve Washingtonians of all 8 wards, especially that east of the river. As a proud Washingtonian, I will bring my passion for the city and my lifelong commitment to public libraries and keeping DCPL as a trusted and safe place. Thank you again for this opportunity to testify today. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Encina, and I really appreciate learning more about your background. Let's just jump in right there. You spoke about your work at the Library of Congress as well as at the Enoch Pratt Free Library. Can you speak to some of the challenges you had to overcome at those institutions to help them grow and expand their reach?
Like many libraries around the country, there's always a cultural change when people and how they look at libraries. People always think that's only a place for books. We have to raise the awareness that public libraries serve the community. As I mentioned, they're safe places. They've become kind of the go-to place for families or researchers or just book lovers tend to go to find a place to connect with another person. The role of the library has evolved more to than just a place where you could just check out books or go for story time. Whether here it's in DC or especially at public libraries or urban public libraries around the country, they serve a bigger purpose for folks who don't have access to computers or folks who don't have access to health information or have access to any, some basic needs that most people take for granted.
Thank you. A lot of your specific background is in communications. How might you leverage that expertise to help DCPL improve its communication with residents?
I think the DC Public Library Communications Division has been doing an outstanding job. They just were awarded with the IMLS, one of the award for one of the best libraries in the nation. So there's a lot to acknowledge there. I think I could add my expertise with working with George and Rich at DC Public and making sure that we connect to the folks who are unaware of what the library offers. I think people are fully aware of what happens at the Martin Luther King Library, but we want to make sure that folks who live in the community branches are aware of what's available to them.
Yeah, reaching those people that aren't readily
Absolutely.
going to the library.
And sometimes they always feel like the library is a little intimidating. We really want to make sure that they know that it's a community center.
Do you see opportunities for enhanced coordination with the Library of Congress, for instance, or other federal institutions in our DC public library system?
Absolutely. If there's one thing my mentor, Carla Hayda, has taught me, collaboration and partnerships is key. It really helps reach a broader audience. We've been working with the Library of Congress and DC Public have been working together, especially on author events, whether it's the National Book Festival or other events across the city. But I think there's so much more we could do. And I think there's so much more folks that we could partner with across the city.
Yeah, I mean, I always say we have a world-class museum system right here in our backyard, history literally in our backyard, and bringing that to life through our library system.
You have a world-class library system.
And we have
too.
a world-class library system. That is very true. You testified that in this digital age, libraries continue to evolve in how they serve communities, and that there is a need to adapt to the ever-changing need of the user. How do you think DCPL has fared on that count, and where do you see opportunities for improvement?
I think it's one of those things that's always going to be evolving because, as you know, technology just keeps on changing. I mean, like technology from 5 years ago or even 10 years ago may not even apply to what it is now. I think it's very important to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve, knowing what our users need, whether they don't have Kindles at home or they need hotspots. I think or they need the digital access that we could help provide them, is to make sure that we get ahead of that.
I recently dug into data from the library, and in many metrics, we're trying to rebound from the pandemic, which is not surprising. One that was surprising to me, and I'm going to come back as a follow-up question to you, is that whereas before the pandemic, we saw computer usage at a high, we haven't quite hit that watermark following the pandemic, even though visits and Wi-Fi usage is surpassing levels pre-pandemic, which to me says people are finding new reasons and uses for the library, using different forms of technology that perhaps they have at home, coming to the library to make use of that. Given the constant evolutions of technology, whether it be via smartphones or laptops or what have you, how do we make the library more accessible to residents across the city, namely our young people who often are in need of something to do after school or on the weekends?
That's very important. I think it's very generational when people look at libraries of how they use it. You know, our parents, our grandparents probably were used to checking out books. The 16-year-olds or the tweens nowadays are really inept when it comes to, or really know what they're doing when it comes to their tablets and the digital age. I think we need to meet them because it's the one way we could attract them to come to the library. Just watching DC Public's or looking at DC Public's website and their social media engagement, they've done an excellent job of trying to connect. Of course, that's just one step. Trying to deliver on resources and events and programming is another one. I think DC Public has improved dramatically, maybe in the past 10 years when it comes to that. And I think there's so much more we could do.
Thank you. In your testimony, you mentioned a desire to ensure the DC Public Library equitably serves Washingtonians of all 8 wards, especially those east of the river. Where do you see opportunities for DCPL to improve on that front?
I would love to, visit all libraries, especially hear from what the community wants from each one. From my experience in Baltimore, like the needs from one branch could differ dramatically over the needs of another branch across the harbor. I think love to hear what are the needs of the community down in Anacostia over the folks who live, let's say, in Southeast. I think it differs for each one, and I think and kind of like the sky's the limit to find out how could we meet them in the needs and how to support them when it comes to the library.
Yeah, that is very important, and making different uses of the library at different locations, I think, is very important. So a library in Ward 7 may look very different than a library in Ward 3, not just even in its design, but in the use
Absolutely.
and the facility.
Especially there's some branches that have probably a larger Spanish speaking community and
That's right.
trying to make sure that they know they're aware of it. I think many, especially Spanish speaking families, are a little nervous when it comes to, signing up for and putting their name on something. But, just to reiterate with them that the library is a safe place. We're not gonna do anything else with your information. We want to make sure that they know that they're welcome.
In your pre-hearing question responses, you prize how our local branch libraries can serve as gathering and safe places for the community, and you're speaking to that. We know, though, that DCPL has had to confront some tensions with respect to maintaining an opening and inviting posture while also ensuring those spaces are safe and functional for residents. Specifically, the tensions have come to the forefront as it relates to our unhoused neighbors and how the library system is engaging with them. How do you think DCPL should navigate those tensions? One, and then two, should you be on the board, how might your expertise help the library engage and reach residents to inform them about the library's position?
As I mentioned, I think it is very important, whether you're homeless or you're just a regular citizen of the district, that the library is a welcoming place. We welcome anyone. And I think it's always maybe the struggle that many urban public libraries deal with. But there's a way to make sure to maintain a process so the users know that it's still a safe place to go to. It's easy to mingle, a family of coming over for story time or another group of folks, just clearly need a place to stay and stay warm. I think most families agree with it. And of course, as long as that the libraries had certain guidelines that users have to follow, I think it could be maintained as a safe place.
And your service on the board, how might your background and expertise help the library in communicating out its position for handling all types of tensions, specifically maybe dealing with unhoused neighbors and them being welcome at the library, but also other issues that may arise?
From a communication standpoint, I think it really comes down to just how we treat and communicate with them, just communicating with the staff, making sure that they're aware how to treat folks. And of course, and how we welcome everyone into the libraries is another one. There's that movie that came out maybe almost 10 years ago. It was produced by Emilio Estevez. It was about, it was fictional, but it dealt with the problem of how do public libraries deal with this situation and these issues. And I think, of course, it's a Hollywood movie, but there's little nuggets there of how to address the issues that urban libraries are facing. And I think from my expertise working at in Baltimore and at my position at the Library of Congress and hearing what other public libraries are dealing with across the country, it's a nice springboard of hearing what other libraries are doing, and I could share that with DC Public.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges that libraries are facing across the country?
Well, as you could imagine, the whole book banning situation and drag story time is a big issue when it comes especially to certain cities around the country. It's quite frightening, honestly, just because many of these librarians and library staff members are being threatened by their neighbors. That's a major one going on. And of course, trying to remind folks that libraries are your trusted source and it needs to be treated that way. In this age of misinformation, people need to rely on their public library more than ever. They don't have to do it on physically and come on site clearly, but that the library's website and all the information that they have and resources available is a trusted place.
What do you expect to be the most challenging aspect of serving on the Board of Library Trustees, and how might you meet that challenge?
I think it's what we've been discussing, trying to make sure that it's more equitable to the other branches in the different wards across the city. I think that's always going to be a struggle in any library, trying to get people to come in and use and let them be aware of what's available, and developing programs and services that could be useful for those people in the community.
And I know earlier you spoke about visiting libraries across the city, but to the second part of that question, and how might your service on the board help the library confront that challenge of making the system more equitable for all 8 wards?
I think that's very important, especially it's important to visit the branches. I think you could read everything about it, but nothing compares in hearing what the staff has to say, seeing what the members of the community need, just seeing how they mingle with one another will help devise certain ways of how to kind of move forward.
Awesome. My understanding is that a lot of the board's critical work is handled by committee. Are there any particular committees you are drawn to, and what perspectives might you bring to the table?
Anything, especially when it comes to engagement and community engagement, and then anything, maybe even facilities. When I was working in Baltimore, we renovated several branches during that time, and there's clearly a lot of golf goalposts to hit and a lot of challenges when you face there. But I think it comes down to really just communicating with the public, because there's renovations are never easy, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of hurdles that the library has to go through. Just making sure to guide the library system easily through that process, and try to be as transparent as possible to the community it's serving.
Absolutely. And my last question for you, you mentioned it in your testimony, but do you have a library card?
I do.
Okay, I just wanted to get that out of the way
Absolutely.
because that came up before. Thank you, Mr. Encina.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Next, we will hear from Mr. Shanel Anthony. And so if you could approach the table. And like Mr. Encina, I will swear you in. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you. And you may begin with your opening statement. If you there you go.
So first off, good morning, Councilmember, Chairman Parker, Mayor Bowser, council members, my fellow trustees, the DCPL Foundation, and most importantly, DCPL staff. Thank you for this opportunity. It has truly been an honor to serve on this board as a district resident. To be able to give back to a system that gave so much to me is truly humbling. My name is Shanel Anthony. I'm a lifelong Washingtonian who grew up in the Petworth neighborhood. So yes, that means that my first employer was the Marion Summer Youth Employment Program. And my introduction to the library was my local Petworth branch and the Martin Luther King Jr. branch. My earliest memories of DCPL were going to the Petworth branch to do school projects while at nearby St. Gabriel's. Then even as a teenager, not having internet at home, I used the library to prepare college applications, do research for universities. My commitment to service started as a child in Washington, D.C., with volunteering at my church, St. Luke's Episcopal Church, and Martha's Table. My commitment to service continued as I attended DeMatha Catholic High School, and after college, then after DeMatha, I matriculated to Bryant University in Smithfield, Rhode Island, on a football scholarship, and achieved my degree in marketing and my MBA. After graduation, I returned to DC and furthered my professional career, but also continued to seek opportunities for community involvement. At that time, I successfully pursued a write-in campaign to fill a vacant ANC seat. During my 5 terms as ANC, I served as treasurer, chair, and derived satisfaction of improving the neighborhood I grew up in. As a commissioner, my contributions led to more affordable housing, healthier eating options, improved recreational facilities, and most importantly, a renovated Petworth library. Collectively, as a father, a lifelong DC resident, and ANC commissioner, and healthcare executive in my previous years on the board of trustees, engaging in budgeting, fighting for diversity and inclusion, overseeing operations, and leading and developing have prepared me for this role. I'm driven by the theory of starting with why. Serving on this board for the past 5 years has fueled my why and drives me to continue to give back to my community. It has been immensely satisfying and rewarding to give back to an institution that gave so much to me as a child, way beyond books. On the board, my contributions have included serving as vice chair and having the pleasure of serving on the executive committee of the Board of DC Public Library Trustees. But most satisfying has been having a front row seat to the expansion of Books to Birth program and working with the foundation to create the Beyond the Books program as a next level in literacy engagement for DC residents. Equally enjoyable has been providing oversight to the completion of the Martin Luther King Jr. Library branch and participating in a design and contracting process of several refreshes and updating of local branches, such as the Lamont Riggs, Lillian J. Huff branch in Ward 5. My proudest moment thus far has been seeing the library pivot during and following the COVID-19 pandemic to reflect the needs of our cardholders. From handing out COVID-19 test kits to supporting various initiatives, the library continues to pivot and meet the needs of its residents, of its members. This pivot has also been reflected in our programming, ranging from go-go bands and local brands on display at Art All Night to a speaking engagement recently in collaboration with the Library of Congress with Supreme Court Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, to even Leonardo da Vinci's exhibit, highlighting the diverse nature of our members, but also our desire to create an equitable system for all DC residents. Our work has even been recognized nationally by the Institution of Museum and Libraries, as we were selected as the 2024 National Medal for Museums and Libraries. Lastly, as the father of two, I see now more than ever the importance of making sure all children in our city can succeed in the role the library can play in their development and success. I want to continue to contribute to making sure all DC residents know how the library can impact their lives. As our city continues to improve and be a first-class city, we must ensure we're a first-class city for all residents. Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned during your testimony, and I'm going to just read an excerpt. My contributions have included serving as vice chair and having the pleasure of serving on the executive committee of the Board of Library Trustees. Most satisfying has been having a front row seat to the expansion of Books to Birth and working with the foundation to create the Beyond Books program as the next level in literacy engagement for DC residents. Can you just elaborate there about your ongoing service and what those proud moments mean for this next term?
Absolutely. So ironically, my appointment initially 5 years ago aligned with the birth of my child, right? So although my wife wasn't very happy with an additional commitment, we've grown as a family to love the library, and myself and my kids all have library cards at 4 and 5 years old. Books to Birth in particular, I think, is a program that you asked the Mr. Encina about how can we continue to expand. That's a national program where children, my child was, I don't think he was 2 months old, and he already received a piece of mail that had his name on it, and it was a book, right? And every DC resident that's born in DC, they get automatically enrolled in Books to Birth. It's a fantastic program, and every month, I guess, a new book comes. They get to read the books, and it's creating a little library in our homes. And Beyond Books is just an expansion of that. I think Books to Birth goes to 5 years old, and Beyond Books goes from 6 to like 8 or 10. And it's the sense of pride that children feel when they get a piece of mail. They're really excited, but it's also the access to literacy and the expansion of literacy, where even if you don't come to us, we come to you. So that's how we're fighting to ensure equity.
And that literacy focus is very important. And I'm glad to have the library in the fight to just improve literacy across the city. Are you currently on the executive committee?
Yes, I'm the vice chair and I oversee the P3 committee, which is the Programs, Partnerships, and Performance Committee.
Got it. You bring to the table a rich background as a lifelong resident and considerable service to your community as ANC Commissioner, Bryant University Alumni Council, and Ward 4 Democrats corresponding secretary. How does your ties to the community inform your work on the library board?
Great, great question. In a number of ways, I would say to start it, coming from a community approach, everything we do, try to approach it from a resident, right? Not just someone who's sitting on the board, someone who has access to information, but I challenge us all the time to say, how are we disseminating information to just the regular person that's going to work that may not check our website, that may not be on Twitter? Just how can we continue to ensure that the regular person living their life every day knows about what we do every day, knows about what we do in the system, not just at MLK, but at their local branch? And how can we collaborate with the community to ensure that they're aware of what we do and partner with them? So always having that community focus and approach I try to bring. And it all depends, right? So when we do facilities, I sit on the facilities committee. I try to bring some experience that I learned from being an ANC commissioner dealing with development, right? When we have communication issues, my business background comes in there. So it all depends on the situation.
In your responses to pre-hearing questions, you wrote that there is room for DCPL to improve to get more people in branch libraries, especially
Absolutely.
those in need. What specific strategies do you think DCPL should pursue to reach more people?
So first off, I want to take my hat off to the staff because they're amazing, right? They do great work. And I don't think it's as much as what we need to do differently, more so what we can do better. Our social media outreach has been phenomenal over the past year. I think we've made some changes. We've updated our website. We've changed our hours. Those are great, great improvements. But I think we can do even more. In a previous question, you asked about the youth, right? That's always a challenge. DCPL is just like every other agency, right? With whatever ills are impacting society, they'll impact us too, right? But what I learned from COVID with DCPLs, if you build it, they will come. And when we had access to Wi-Fi, people were literally sitting outside of our branches to connect to Wi-Fi. Every branch had COVID-19 kit distributions, and they were all taken. So we have to continue to do programs and continue to build the programs that we know young people and those at risk can benefit from.
Yeah.
Just being very specific.
I want to specifically give a shout out to the social media team at the DC Public Library. I think they're among the best in the district. I know public safety has been a concern for the city as well as for the library system. Can you speak to some of the challenges our libraries face as it relates to public safety and what your thinking is about how the library can continue to rise to the ongoing challenge?
Great question. I was hoping you didn't ask me that, but but it's honest. It goes back to what I said earlier. We're not immune to the ills going on in society. So we have challenges. We recently hired a new public safety director who's doing phenomenal, and she is in the community. She's at Art All Night. She's at all of the events, and I think that's the start. Approaching everything from a community base, from a community perspective, is a great start. Secondly, you asked the question earlier. We serve like DCPL and DMV, probably the most diverse agencies in the city, where regardless of your social economic background, regardless of your education background, we interface with you, and that can be complicated. But I think with the continued proper training with the staff and the continued community-based engagement, we can address these needs.
You are also a small business owner and mentioned that you would like to continue to push for small business engagement with the library. How do you think DCPL's relationship with small businesses should or could evolve?
Absolutely, particularly with DCPL does millions of dollars in construction to our buildings. We do a great job of ensuring that a portion of all of our projects get set aside for certified business enterprises, small disadvantaged businesses. And I think we can do even more. And that's something I challenge them on the facilities committee every day. What can we do more to ensure small businesses are aware of the contracts that are available and educate them on how to get these contracts? People often think of contracts as companies that are well built, the Googles, the Amazons coming, and they're well prepared. They know how to respond to RFPs. But there are plenty of small businesses that don't have that infrastructure, don't have that know-how. And as the library, we can play a tremendous role in helping educate small businesses on how to do business with the library and DC government.
And I wanted to go back. You mentioned that you're on the facilities committee at the library. DCPL has several capital projects that you just were referencing in the works, including one in Ward 5. Can you speak to how you see DCPL's facility needs evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
That's probably our biggest challenge going forward. Coming out of COVID, we see the uses of libraries completely shifting from the door counts are growing, of course, but also you mentioned earlier the ways people utilize the buildings, right? What my ANC meetings used to be held in libraries. Now ANC meetings are virtual, right? So going forward, I think it's more important than ever to get the pulse of the community to understand what do they need, and for us to do some homework to understand in the future, where do we see the trends going? And that couldn't be any more evident right now in Ward 8. The Congress Park Library is, I think was just been awarded, but the level of engagement every month, they're meeting with the community to understand this may be what Ward 4 has, what 5 has, but what do you all need, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need space for children? Do you need more lighting? Do you need more programming? And just truly being a good steward of the government and of the people, I think is the best way to continue to ensure we're evolving with not the trends, but also looking around the corner to see what's coming.
And I know the library is planning to release its master's facilities plan. And while I won't ask you specifics about the plan, what do you anticipate that plan showing about how the library is going to pivot, if you will, in its use of facilities across the city? And as a member of the council, like, what should we be getting out of this master's facilities plan when it's released?
So, I mean, that's similar to your previous question. Our biggest challenge is looking around the corner to see what we have the data of what's been changing, but is it going to continue to shift that way? And I think the biggest challenge that we're faced with is financial. Projects that used to cost 1 million, 2 million are now 3 or 4 million. And our budgeting process, capital budgeting is years in advance, but we have to take that into consideration because for current term that the funds aren't necessarily congruent.
Mm-hmm.
So financially thinking about how we can fund these future projects, because it's as great as it is to build beautiful buildings, we have to maintain them.
That's right.
So that's, does that mean stop?
No, we're gonna keep going through the.
All right.
I have a few more questions, but
yeah, I think that, I mean, that's our challenge, right? Looking at the data to see we're recovering from COVID, but how are we? What's the future hold? Are we gonna? Our libraries have been 20,000 square feet traditionally, right? Do they need to be smaller? Do they need to be larger? How does that space need to be cut up going forward?
okay. The GoGo Advisory Panel. Can you share more about it?
Yes. So our work there is to, once again, be more community faced. We have the GoGo archives, but something that we've been charged with is expanding upon that archives. You know, the rich history, you're Washingtonian, the rich history of GoGo in the city. Leading that, something that I've been working to do is to try to build partnerships, something you mentioned earlier, partnerships, collaborations with key stakeholders in the GoGo community, but also just regular people, where we can have regular citizens who have experience from the GoGo to come tell their experience. And we want to chronicle and archive this rich history. So that's been a challenge because people's experiences are very close and valuable to them. And
Mhm.
sometimes they want to commoditize them. And that's okay. But our objective is purely positive, and it's purely to celebrate this music and this culture, from the businesses that have grown from it, to the celebrities that have grown from it, to the lives that it's changed.
I appreciate that. One last question. In your pre-hearing responses, you noted that a major challenge for DCPL is ensuring that residents know about the programming that is happening. What steps do you think we should be taking to improve the reach of the library so more neighbors know about what's happening?
I'm hoping my new trustee can help with that. But I mean, we have to, like, you have to go where the people are, right? Which is why I love our, so that's something I challenged us on a board for years. How can we do better with social media, right? Now it's so rewarding to see our posts get reposted and shared. But that's one start, right? It goes back to collaboration. Um, do we partner with the ANCs so they know? Do we partner with schools? Right? We have to go to where the people are. And we have mobile libraries, but I think we can do even more, particularly to get information to our local branches. Everyone knows what goes on at MLK, but what's going on at Lillian J. Huff? What's going on at Shepherd Park? What's going on at Woodbridge and Shaw? So, and it's hard, right? It's a lot of noise
That's
that
right.
competing for people's attention, but when when the product is right, people follow it. I mean, Art on Night had almost 70,000 people at MLK, right? That tells you that people were paying attention. So, if the content is there and the distribution is there, I think that's the happy marriage
That is amazing. 70,000 people
on G Street. Or
and no documented incidents, which I
thank you.
think is also remarkable. So kudos to you all for pulling that off.
The team
And
did a great job.
I take to heart what you said. When you have a good product, people will come and be a part of it. And our DC Public Library is certainly a good product. So I look forward to doing everything I can to support the great work of the library system.
And congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
And I want to thank you, Mr. Anthony, as well as you, Mr. Encina, for sharing your testimony today. The record will remain open for anyone wishing to submit written testimony until October 30th, 2024. Submissions should be uploaded via the council's hearing management system. There will be no further business before the subcommittee today. This marks the end of today's public roundtable. I do want to again thank you all for your willingness to serve and sharing a bit more about your background. With that, the time is now 11:42 a.m. and this public roundtable is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.